The phone rang while I was folding Gerald's clothing. 6 weeks after the funeral, on a Tuesday afternoon in March, it happened. Even after most of the neighbors' casseroles had been eaten, frozen, or thrown out when I could no longer stand to look at them, the home still had a slight smell of them. One drawer at a time, I had been carefully going through his clothes to choose what I should donate and what I should keep. The aroma of his aftershave, Old Spice, which he had been using since 1973, was still present in his flannel clothes. I was shocked by the phone. He usually wore the blue shirt I was holding to church on Sundays, so I put it down and went to the hallway where the landline was hanging on the wall. Despite the widespread belief that landlines were outdated, we had retained it. It was nice to have there, Gerald. Claimed that it seemed dependable and permanent. Hello. The person on the other end paused, then the delicate, unsure voice of a lady. Is this Rose Cunningham? Yes. I tightened my hold on the phone. Who's calling? One more pause. Through the telephone wire, I could sense her hesitancy and hear her breathing. My name is Patricia. Patricia Cunningham. I need to talk to you about Gerald. Slowly, the name registered. Cunningham. Similar to me. Similar to Gerald. I said, I'm sorry. Very carefully. I think you might have the wrong number. My husband passed away recently and... Her voice cracked a little as she said, I know. I know he did, Mrs. Cunningham, Rose. I don't know how to say this. There's no good way. But Gerald was... He was my husband, too. The words lingered in the atmosphere. I heard them. I comprehended each one separately, but they didn't make sense when combined. Excuse me? She went on. For 32 years, and I could hear her crying now. I was married to Gerald for 32 years. We lived in Columbus. We had 2 children together, and I just found out about you. There in the corridor, I took a seat on the floor. My legs just failed me. I pressed the receiver so hard to my ear that it hurt, and the phone cable stretched as I slid down the wall. Whispering, That's impossible. Patricia's voice was full of sorrow as she said, I wish it was. I found papers after he died. Marriage certificate with your name, photos, letters. He had another life with you and I never knew, just like you never knew about me. I still had the blue garment in my hand. I gazed at it, at the little spaghetti sauce stain on the collar, at the buttons I had stitched back on when one came loose 2 years ago. Gerald wore this shirt. Gerald, who had bid me farewell with a kiss each morning for half a century. Before our kid was born, Gerald had supported me after 3 miscarriages. Gerald, who grew tomatoes in our yard and told me about his day after retiring from the post office at age 65. Gerald, who had reportedly also been married to someone else when I said, I don't believe you. However, I sensed a change within myself while I was saying it. The basis of everything I knew had a tiny fracture in it. I have proof, Patricia said. Photos of you two, your wedding picture, Christmas cards signed by both of you, and Rose. There are train tickets, hundreds of them. He traveled back and forth between Columbus and here. Where are you? My voice sounded empty when I said, Dayton? We live in Dayton, saying 73 miles. He made that trip twice a week for 32 years. Told me he was visiting his sick sister. Told me he had business meetings. Told me so many lies I'm still finding them all. I shut my eyes. Every 2 weeks. Gerald met at the lodge on Tuesdays and Thursdays. He mentioned the Elks Lodge community service and fraternity. He would leave at 5 and return home at 11. Every Thursday and Tuesday for what length of time? I tried to recall when it began. When did those lodge meetings start to happen every day? I inquired, when did you marry him? June 12th, 1991. I calculated it. 1991. David, our son, was 16 years old. 23 years have passed since our marriage. That summer came back to me. At the post office, Gerald had taken on additional shifts, claimed that the funds were necessary for David's college fund, claimed to be working extra hours, getting dinner on the way, and arriving home late, telling her, "I married him in 1968. May 4th, 1968. Oh, God." Her tears were audible. "You were first. You're the real wife. I don't even know what I am." However, she was mistaken. Both of us were real. Both of us had adored him. Together, they created lives with him. They both had faith in him. They were both duped. I said, "Do you have children?" "Two daughters. Melissa is 31. Sarah is 28. They're devastated. Their father was their hero. And now, David was on my mind. My 54-year-old son, his wife, and their two teenage kids reside in Cleveland. At his father's funeral, David had given the eulogy, who had shed tears as they spoke of Gerald's goodness and how he had taught him honesty and integrity. I said, "My son doesn't know. I haven't told him." "Mine don't know about you either," Patricia said. "They know their father was married before to someone named Rose. They think you were divorced. That's what he told them." Separated. It nearly made me chuckle. Despite being married for 50 years, I was allegedly divorced. "We must get together," Patricia stated. "I know this is horrible. I know you probably never want to hear my voice again. But I have things that belong to you, photos, documents, and I need to understand what happened, how he did this, why." I surveyed my hallway. We had hung the same wallpaper back in 1985. It was the same mirror Gerald used to check his tie each morning. For 30 years, he put his post office jacket on the same hook. It was everything familiar. It's all a lie. "Where?" I inquired. "There's a diner in Springfield, halfway between us, the Bluebird Cafe on Main Street. Could you meet me there? Tomorrow, maybe?" Tomorrow. I had 24 hours to be ready for a discussion that would negate all of my preconceived notions about my existence. When I said 1 o'clock, she said, "Thank you," in a whisper. "Rose, I'm so sorry. For all of it." She ended the call. I knew I couldn't cry as I sat on the floor with the phone and the blue flannel shirt. The tears refused to fall. I couldn't cry because I was too surprised, too numb, and too broken. Rather, I carefully got up, made my way back to Gerald's closet, and began looking. What else had he lied about if he had lied about this? In the pocket of his suit jacket, I discovered the first piece of evidence. He wore the navy jacket at funerals and weddings. I had previously searched this pocket and located both his wallet and his reading glasses. Now, however, I took a closer look, felt along the lining, and found a tiny rip in the inside pocket that opened up a secret gap between the lining and the fabric. There was a picture inside. 2 young girls with matching Easter outfits, perhaps ages 5 and 7, braids of blonde hair, large grins with missing teeth. They were carrying Easter baskets in front of a residence I didn't recognize. I flipped it over. The back bears Gerald's handwriting, which reads, "Melissa and Sarah, Easter 1997. That was 26 years ago. These girls would today be considered ladies. Patricia's daughters were the same." My hands began to shake. I placed the picture on the bed and continued looking. I discovered a small wooden box under his winter clothing in the back of his dresser drawer. It was secured. I had once asked him what was in it after recalling seeing it years ago. He'd said, "Just old post office papers? Pension documents, boring stuff?" I shattered the latch with a hammer I got from the garage. There were letters within, dozens of them. Patricia's correspondence with Gerald from 1990. prior to their marriage. Love letters. Dear Gerald, I can't wait to see you again. These weeks between your visits feel like years. I count the days until Thursday. Thursday. His night in the lodge. His daughters had sent birthday cards, artwork from elementary school that reads, "Happy birthday, Daddy. I miss you when you're on your business trips. Come home soon." A dance recitals program, 9-year-old Melissa Cunningham in the Nutcracker. As well as pictures. So many pictures. On their wedding day, Gerald was wearing the identical blue suit I had just looked at, and Patricia was wearing a plain white dress. Gerald is holding a baby. Gerald and some strangers during a backyard cookout. A young girl is being pushed on a swing by Gerald. Wearing matching red sweaters, Gerald, Patricia, and their 2 daughters at Christmas, an entire life. A whole parallel existence. I laid out the pictures on our bed, Gerald's and my bed, where we had shared a bed for 50 years, and looked at them. Gerald appeared content in all of the pictures, sincere joy. Nor phony, nor coerced. He gave Patricia the identical smile that he gave me. He was as compassionate with his girls as he had been with David. What had he done? How could he have kept up 2 whole families and 2 whole lives without one of us noticing? On the bedside table, I glanced at our wedding photo, 4 May 1968. At the age of 22, I was dressed in my mother's modified wedding gown. In his rented tuxedo, 25-year-old Gerald looked dapper. We appeared so youthful and optimistic. The future of that young woman's life was unknown to her. I called David after picking up the phone. "Mom?" he asked in a kind, worried tone. Since the burial, he had been phoning daily. "How are you doing?" "David, I need you to come to Dayton tomorrow if you can." "What's wrong? Are you okay?" My voice broke. No, I'm not okay. I need to tell you something about your father, something terrible." A long pause ensued. "Mom, you're scaring me. I'm scared too. Please come tomorrow morning. Don't bring Susan and the kids, just you. I'll leave at 6. I'll be there by 8. I collected every photo, letter, and piece of proof of Gerald's covert life and placed them in a cardboard box. After we hung up, I took the box downstairs and placed it on the kitchen table where Gerald and I had shared breakfast for 50 years. I prepared tea for myself. I had been drinking Earl Grey tea since I was 20 years old. I attempted to comprehend as I sat at the table and put my hands around the hot mug. Half a century. How can 50 years be reconciled? I considered our union. Were there any indications? Had I overlooked something so clear? Was he really that skilled at lying, or was I blind? I played back memories like evidence for a detective. He was absent on Tuesday and Thursday evenings. He claimed that he occasionally had to assist his sister with roof repairs or furniture moves, the seemingly needless length of the business trips. There were times when he returned home with a distinct scent, not perfume, nothing overt, but just distinct. I had never doubted it. Why would I? Gerald was his name. Gerald was steady and trustworthy. Each week, he brought home his paycheck. Our anniversary was never forgotten by him. Every morning, he bid me farewell with a kiss and declared his love for me. Apparently, he also said the same things to Patricia. I didn't get any sleep that night. I lay in our bed, which is now my bed, and gazed up at the ceiling. I woke up at 3 a.m. and returned to Gerald's closet. I opened every box, dug into every pocket, and looked everywhere. I discovered more. A 1995 receipt from a Columbus jewelry store, a ring of emerald. There was no emerald ring on my finger. Patricia most likely did. "Happy 65th, Gerald. Can't believe my little brother is getting so old," reads the birthday card sent by Margaret. His sister, who reportedly required a great deal of assistance, I wonder if there was a Margaret. Or was she a lie again? I had 3 boxes full of evidence by the time the sun rose. cards, receipts, letters, and photos, an account of Gerald's other life in full. As promised, David showed up at 8. I heard his key in the lock and his car in the driveway. Despite living 2 hours away, he had maintained his key over the years. He entered the kitchen and paused, asking, "Mom?" I was seated at a table with boxes all around me. I must have looked crazy. "Sit down," I said. "Please." His gaze swept over the pictures arranged on the table as he sat slowly. "What is all this?" "Your father had another family." The statement was delivered without feeling. Another wife, 2 daughters, for 32 years. David's expression alternated between bewilderment, incredulity, and rage before settling on shock. That's not possible." I shoved the wedding picture of Patricia and Gerald in his direction. "Her name is Patricia. They got married in 1991. They lived in Columbus. He saw them twice a week. Told her he had a sick sister in Dayton. Told us he had lodge meetings." David's hands were shaking as he picked up the picture. "This is Dad?" I showed him the Easter picture and said, "With his other wife, these are your half-sisters, Melissa and Sarah." He gazed at the pictures for a while, then he got to his feet, went to the sink, and puked. I stood next to him, massaging his back as I had done when he was younger and ill. The words, "I'm sorry," I muttered. "I'm so sorry." He said in a raspy voice, "How did you find out?" "Patricia called me yesterday. She found papers about us after Gerald died. She didn't know about me either. We were both deceived." David looked at me after wiping his mouth. He had red eyes. 32 years? 32 years. That means, when I was in high school, he was building another family. When I graduated college, when I got married, when the kids were born. The whole time. The whole time. He rested his head in his hands and sank back in his chair. Who was he? I don't know who my father was. Neither do I. For a while, we sat in silence. Then David raised his head. "What are you going to do?" "I'm meeting Patricia today. 1 o'clock at a diner in Springfield. I need to see her. I need to understand. I'm coming with you." "David, you don't have to—" His voice was firm. "I'm coming. She's part of this too. And if I have half-sisters, I need to know." David and I therefore got into his car at noon and headed to Springfield. The Bluebird Cafe was a little eatery that had been there for ages. The floor is checkered in black and white, and the booths are red vinyl, the aroma of frying bacon and coffee. Patricia had already arrived. She was older now, but I recognized her from the wedding picture. With her hands encircling a coffee mug, she sat in a window-facing booth and gazed at nothing. When we entered, she looked up. When our eyes locked, I noticed that my own suffering was mirrored back to me. "Rose," she said. Unsurely getting to her feet, I approached and said, "Patricia." We did not exchange handshakes. We didn't give each other hugs. As 2 women who had loved the same man and experienced the same kinds of betrayal, we simply stared at one another saying, "This is David, my son, Gerald's son." Tears filled Patricia's eyes. "You look like him. Oh God, you look just like him." David's mouth was clenched. "You have daughters?" "Yes, Melissa and Sarah. They're at home. They wanted to come, but I thought, maybe that should wait." We took a seat. Despite the fact that none of us particularly wanted food, a waitress arrived and took our orders. Everyone gets coffee. The table fell silent as she departed. Patricia finally said something. "I've been trying to figure out how to start this conversation, what to say, but there's nothing that makes it better, is there?" "No," I concurred. "There isn't." She took a big envelope out of her purse and said, "I brought things. Photos, documents. I thought you should have them." Then she laid them out on the table. Additional images from Gerald's other life. These, however, were distinct. I could relate to these as well. "He took photos from your house," Patricia muttered. "Pictures of you and David. He told us these were his family from his first marriage. The wife who divorced him. The son who didn't want contact with him." David sounded as though he had been struck, I remarked. "He lied to all of us. Differently, but equally." Patricia gave a nod. "I kept wondering how I didn't see it, how I didn't know, but he was so careful. He had routines, patterns. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, he was with us. Tuesday, Thursday, he told me he visited his sister. Weekends he worked, or so he said. I guess he was with you?" "Yes." I remembered our Saturdays together. We are gardening, visiting a farmer's market, church services on Sundays. He was with us on weekends, and Monday, Wednesday, Friday nights. David questioned, how did he keep it all straight? How did he remember who he was supposed to be? "I think," Patricia continued slowly, "he was always himself. That's what makes it so horrible. He wasn't pretending with either of us. He genuinely loved both families. He just couldn't choose, or wouldn't. I considered that. About Gerald kissing my forehead when he got home from lodge meetings, about him reading David's stories and tucking him in when he was little, about how he held my hand during my mother's death in the hospital. That had all been true. Had it not? Patricia said, "I found train tickets, Greyhound bus stubs, actually, from 1991 to 2023, twice a week, every week for 32 years, Dayton to Columbus, Columbus to Dayton. Do you know how much that costs? How much time that takes?" "He must have been exhausted," I replied, and felt stupid at once. If he was tired, why should I care? He had lied to earn his weariness. Patricia, however, was aware. I thought the same thing all those years of traveling, of juggling schedules, of keeping stories straight. Why? Why not just leave one of us? "Maybe he couldn't," David muttered. We both gave him a look. Maybe he loved both of you. Maybe he couldn't choose, so he chose both. That doesn't make it right. It makes him selfish and cruel. But maybe that's why. I glanced at the woman on the other side of the table, Patricia. At 64, she was 7 years my junior. Her forehead was lined with worry, and her eyes were kind. Like me, she wore a plain gold wedding band. Gerald had been her husband for 32 years. He and I had been wed for 55 years. Who was entitled to him more? Who was the actual spouse? Both of us. Not one of us. Patricia said, "Can I ask you something? Did he ever seem unhappy, like he wanted to leave?" To be honest, I gave it some thought. "No, never. He seemed content, settled. He called me his anchor, said I kept him grounded." Patricia crumpled her face. "He said that to me, too. Exactly those words." He did, of course. Most likely he had told us both the same kind words. The same lies about lodge meetings and sick sisters were told. The same pet names were used, and the same promises were made. David abruptly got to his feet. He left the diner saying, "I need air." For a while, Patricia and I sat quietly. She continued, "My daughters want to meet you. And David, if he's willing." "Why?" "Because your family, strange as that is, your son is their half-brother. You were their father's first wife. They have questions, so many questions." I looked into her eyes and said, "I have questions too. Did he ever mention me in all those years?" Sometimes he'd say things like, "My first wife loved that song," or, "That reminds me of someone I knew once." Small things, memories slipping through. "I never thought," she went on, "that you were the other woman?" That we both were. There was something nearly flawless about it, I had to admit. Gerald hadn't engaged in conventional cheating. He hadn't sneaked around for one-night stands or affairs. He had established 2 whole, legal families, 2 mortgage installments, 2 mornings of Christmas, 2 celebrations for the anniversary, 2 parallel lives spanning more than 30 years. It had to have been draining. Pat inquired, "Did he leave a will?" "Yes. Everything comes to me and David. The house, his pension, his savings, about $200,000 total. He left us money too, about $150,000, plus the house in Columbus. So even in death, he had exercised caution, ensured that both families were taken care of. How considerate." Suddenly, "I'll share it," I said. "The money, half and half." Patricia appeared shocked. "You don't have to do that." "Yes, I do. Your daughters deserve it as much as David. Gerald was their father, too, a liar and a fraud, but still their father." Patricia's cheeks were wet. "Thank you. That's more generous than I expected." I stated, "We're not enemies. We're victims of the same man." David returned inside. His eyes were still hurting, but he appeared more at ease. "I want to meet them, my sisters. I mean, half-sisters. I want to know them." Patricia's tears were disguised by a smile. "They'd like that. When? Soon? Maybe next week? Give us all time to process this insanity." We traded phone numbers, made ad hoc plans. We all knew there would be more information, so we decided to share what we found. More pieces of Gerald's double life. More lies, more secrets. Patricia grabbed my arm as we were leaving the diner. "Rose, do you hate him?" I considered it, gave it careful thought. I confessed, "I don't know what I feel. 50 years. How do you hate 50 years? How do you dismiss all the good times, all the love, all the moments that were real? But how do you forgive this?" I keep asking myself the same thing. As 2 elderly women bound together by betrayal stood in the parking lot, I experienced an unexpected feeling, not exactly friendship, but comprehension, solidarity. I said, "We'll get through this." "Somehow?" Patricia gave a nod. "Call me if you find anything else, any more secrets." "You too." On the way home, David was silent. As the Ohio countryside rolled by, I noticed that it had changed in some way from the thousands of times I had driven through it. Everything had changed, but nothing had. David said, "Mom," at last, "how are you so calm?" "I'm not calm. I'm in shock. When the shock wears off, I'll probably fall apart. Do you want me to stay? I can take some days off work." "No, go home to Susan and the kids, but come back next weekend. We'll figure out this meeting with your sisters together." Sisters. He had never met David's sisters. 2 women in Columbus who likely shared their father's laugh, gestures, and food preferences, shared half of his DNA. Their father, who had lied to all of his loved ones. I stood in my driveway and gazed at the house after David dropped me off. Gerald and I purchased the home in 1972 where David had grown up, where we had commemorated each milestone, birthday, and holiday. During his stay here, had he considered his other family? Had he overlooked them? Or had he managed to compartmentalize himself so well that we were the only reality he experienced when he was with me? I entered and went through each room. Every Sunday, Gerald would watch football in the living room, the kitchen where he spent Saturday mornings preparing pancakes, the bedroom in which we had shared a bed for 50 years. Now all the memories were tainted. Every moment of joy had a shadow. I found myself in Gerald's workshop in the basement. He had spent his free time working with wood, created small toys, birdhouses, and furniture for his grandchildren, David's kids. Had he also created toys for Sarah and Melissa? I looked around the workshop, discovered a partially constructed rocking horse, Discovered dollhouse plans. I discovered a photo album I had never seen before, tucked away in a drawer under his tools. I slowly opened it. Each page had a label. Sarah's school play. Melissa's first birthday. Family vacation, 1998. Hundreds of pictures capturing his other life. Pictures I was never supposed to see. Then I discovered something in the back that totally broke me. There were pictures of David, me, and our grandchildren on one side of the page, which was titled My Two Families. Photographs of Patricia, Melissa, Sarah, and their kids, more grandchildren I was unaware of, were on the opposite side. A picture of Gerald by himself, grinning at the camera, was in the middle. And in his own handwriting, "I am the luckiest man alive. Blessed with two wonderful families, may they never know the truth, but may they always know they're loved." I hope they never find out. He had wished for this secret to pass away with him. He had most likely carefully planned it. Kept all of his documents apart. Had two doctors, one in Columbus and one in Dayton. His mail was being sent to various addresses. His entire life had been neatly split in two. And he had come very close. We would both have lived our entire lives believing in the Gerald we knew if Patricia hadn't discovered those documents, and if she hadn't given me a call, the devoted husband, the devoted father, the whole fiction. I finally started crying as I sat on the basement floor, holding that photo album in my lap. Huge, racking sobs that rocked my entire body. Not soft tears I wept for the 22-year-old, deeply infatuated woman I had once been. For all the years I had wasted, I sobbed. I wept for Patricia because she had been living a lie for 30 years. For David, Melissa, and Sarah, whose father was unknown, I shed tears. And I wept for Gerald because he had been so damaged, so broken, and so self-centered that he had chosen this impossible double life over the truth. It was dark when I eventually stopped crying. I went downstairs, made myself some toast and canned soup, and then sat at the kitchen table and ate in a robotic manner. The telephone rang. David was the one. "Mom, I just talked to Susan. She thinks we should hire a private investigator to see if there's more we don't know about." More. I hadn't even considered the idea. What if 3 families existed? 4. But what if Ohio was only the start? "Okay," I replied. "Find someone good. Are you all right? You sound strange." "I found another photo album in the workshop." "And?" "He documented everything, David. Both lives, like he was proud of it." David remained silent for a while. "I don't think I can call him Dad anymore." "I understand. Do you think he loved us, or was it all fake?" I thought that was the question. I was haunted by that one. I said, "I think he loved us," slowly. "In his own twisted way. I think he loved all of us. That's what makes it worse. If he was just a con man, just using us, it would be simpler. But he genuinely cared. He just couldn't bear to lose anyone, so he lied instead." "That's not love, Mom. That's selfishness." "I know." I went to bed after we hung up, in our chamber. Gerald and I had slept in the same bed for 50 years. His scent permeated the room. He had left his reading glasses on the bedside table. On the back of the door, his robe was still hanging. I got up, gathered his belongings, including his books on his nightstand, his robe, his glasses, and his slippers, and carried them all to the guest room. I then sprayed my own perfume on the pillows, changed the sheets, and stripped the bed. Now this was my room, just mine. The following week was peculiar. I went about my everyday business. Worked in the garden, read the newspaper, and had breakfast. However, everything seemed far away, unreal, as if I were looking through a thick pane of glass at someone else's life. Every day Patricia called. We exchanged notes and discussed our findings. I had never seen the receipts she had discovered. She was unaware that I had discovered letters. We were able to piece together the entire extent of Gerald's deceit. 2 checking accounts had been held by him, 2 credit cards, 2 insurance policy sets. He claimed to be married in Indiana and unmarried in Ohio on his individual tax returns. His primary care doctor had changed twice. 2 dentists. 2 whole groups of friends who never crossed paths. It was astounding how much organization was needed. For 30 years, he had been essentially 2 different people, and he had done it perfectly. Patricia questioned, how much money did he spend on this during one call? The duplicate, everything, the travel costs, the time. Thousands, I replied, maybe tens of thousands. He could have just been honest, gotten divorced, moved on. Instead, he chose this. I came to the realization, he must have been terrified, of losing either family, of being alone. So terrified that he built this elaborate lie instead. I can't decide if that makes me angrier or sadder. Both, I replied. It's both. David called on Friday to announce that he had engaged an investigator. Rebecca Stone was a woman who focused on hidden assets and infidelity. She's going to look into everything, commented David. His financial records, travel patterns, property holdings. If there's more, she'll find it. Okay. Mom, are you eating? You sound weak. I'm fine. You're not fine. None of us are fine, but we will be. Eventually. I wasn't sure I thought that was true. However, I was grateful that he said it. Rebecca Stone gave me a call on Saturday morning. She spoke in a kind but professional tone. Mrs. Cunningham, I've begun my investigation into your husband's activities. I need to meet with you to discuss what I've found. Can I come to your home today? You found something already? Yes, ma'am. And I think you'll want to sit down for this conversation. At noon she showed up. She had sharp eyes, a briefcase full of papers, and was younger than I thought she would be, perhaps 40. She opened her briefcase and we sat at the table in my kitchen where everything had fallen apart a week earlier. Mrs. Cunningham, I have to tell you, in 20 years of doing this job, I've never seen anything quite like your husband's case. The level of organization, the attention to detail, the sheer audacity of it. I said, just tell me, is there a third family? No, just the 2 families, but there's something else. She produced a sheet of paper, a deed of property. Your husband owned a cabin in Brown County, Indiana, 60 acres of wooded land, about 2 hours south of here. He bought it in 1975. We've been married for 7 years. It would have been David's 5th birthday. I don't understand. We never went to a cabin. I didn't even know he liked camping. Rebecca took out some pictures and said, he didn't use it for camping. A tiny log cabin with big windows, a porch, and good upkeep. Interior views displaying cozy furnishings, a wood stove, and bookshelves. I visited the property yesterday. The neighbors say a man matching Gerald's description came every few months, sometimes stayed for a week or 2, always alone. Alone. Never brought either family. It was just him. I looked at the pictures. Gerald's cabin was hidden. Patricia and I were unaware of this location, something he went to be. What? He himself? Both husbands? Not both fathers? Softly, there's more, Rebecca said. I found journals. He kept them in a locked drawer at the cabin. The neighbors mentioned them when I showed them a search warrant. What kind of journals? His thoughts, his feelings about the double life. Mrs. Cunningham. He documented everything. Why he did it, how he justified it, what it cost him emotionally. She gave me a notebook that was bound in leather. Each page was written in Gerald's hand. Rebecca said, I'll leave these with you. I've made copies for my files, but I think you need to read them. I sat by myself with Gerald's journals after she left. From 1980 to 2023, there were 6 of them, 43 years of his innermost thoughts. I read the first entry after opening the first one, February 14th, 1980. Rose asked me today why I've been distant lately. I wanted to tell her the truth, that I can't stop thinking about the woman I met last fall at the convention in Columbus, Patricia. But how can I tell my wife I'm falling in love with someone else? How can I tell her that I feel whole for the first time in years, but it's because of another woman? I would rather die than hurt Rose. She's been nothing but good to me. So I will keep this to myself. I will be the husband she deserves. I will love her the way I promised. I had trembling hands. I read on. March 20th, 1980. I saw Patricia again. We had coffee. She makes me laugh in a way I haven't laughed in years. She challenges me, argues with me, makes me think Rose is comfortable, safe, familiar. Patricia is exciting, new, dangerous. I know I should stop seeing her. I know this path leads nowhere good, but I can't seem to make myself walk away. Year after year, entry after entry, his culpability, his excuses, his flawed reasoning. January 8th, 1991. I married Patricia today. I know it's wrong, I know it's bigamy, but I couldn't lose her. She gave me an ultimatum, marry her or end it. And I couldn't end it. Just like I can't leave Rose. So now I'm married to 2 women, 2 good women who deserve better than me. But I'm too weak to choose, too selfish to let either of them go. May God forgive me, because I can't forgive myself. June 3rd, 1995. Melissa called me Daddy today. My daughter. My second daughter. I have a son with Rose, and now daughters with Patricia. I am living 2 complete lives, and in both lives I'm a father. I love all my children equally. That's what makes this so hard. How do I choose between them? How do I pick one family over the other? So I won't choose. I'll find a way to be present for all of them, whatever it costs me, in sleep, in money, in sanity. December 25th, 2003. Christmas morning with Rose and David. Afternoon and evening with Patricia, Melissa, and Sarah. 2 turkey dinners. 2 gift exchanges. 2 sets of family traditions. I am exhausted, but I am also happier than I have any right to be. Is this sustainable? Can I keep this up forever? I have to. The alternative, losing either family, is unthinkable. October 17th, 2015. I turned 70 today. Rose made me a chocolate cake with strawberries, my favorite. Patricia got me a new fishing rod. My children called, all 3 of them, to wish me happy birthday. I am a lucky man, even if my luck is built on lies. Sometimes late at night, I imagine what would happen if they found out. Would they forgive me? Would they understand? No, they would hate me. They would call me a monster. So the secret must die with me. I've made arrangements, separate bank accounts, separate wills, separate everything. When I'm gone, they'll each think they were the only one. That's the last gift I can give them, their ignorance of my betrayal. However, he had failed. Patricia located the documents. I called, showed everything. In a single sitting, I read all 6 journals. Reading Gerald's innermost thoughts, struggles, guilt, and decision to continue lying took me hours. I gave Patricia a call after I was done. I said, he kept journals, without introducing myself. At a cabin we didn't know about, he documented everything. What do they say? That he loved us both, that he couldn't choose, that he was selfish and weak and couldn't bear to lose either family. Patricia kept to herself. Afterwards, does that help? Knowing he loved us both? No, I replied truthfully. It makes it worse. If he didn't love us, If he was just using us, we could hate him cleanly. But he did love us, and he still chose to lie. What are you going to do with the journals? I glanced at the stack of leather-bound notebooks on my desk. I'm going to read them to you, I replied. All of them. You deserve to know his truth, just like I needed to know it. And then we'll decide together what to tell the children. For the next week, Patricia and I spoke on the phone for hours every day while I read aloud from Gerald's journals. His love, his guilt, his implausible excuses. She sobbed. I sobbed. We were processing this shared trauma together, grieving together, and being angry together. Slowly, an unexpected event occurred. We grew close. Despite Gerald, not because of him. Despite being betrayed, two women find strength in one another. It was the following Saturday that David met his half-sisters. I accompanied him to the home that Gerald and Patricia had shared in Columbus. Sarah and Melissa were on the porch, waiting. They resembled him. They both shared Gerald's straight nose and blue eyes. He smiled at Sarah. David slowly exited the vehicle while glaring at them. His sisters. They returned the stare. Melissa went on to say, "You have his jawline." David let out a startled laugh. "You have his eyebrows." "This is so weird," Sarah remarked. "Completely insane," concurred David. After that, the three of them were hugging while simultaneously laughing and crying. Patricia and I watched from a distance as our kids bonded over our shared betrayal and genetics. "They'll be okay," Patricia added quietly. "Yes," I said. "They will." We all had to adjust to this new reality. Over the course of the ensuing months, David had regular conversations with his sisters. They found that all three of them were afraid of heights, detested mushrooms, and enjoyed hiking. Learned behavior and genetics became muddled. No other families were found, according to the private investigator. Only the two of us. Only the cabin Gerald used to retreat to when his double life got to be too much. We sold the cabin and split the proceeds. Contrary to what the wills stated, Gerald's assets were divided equally between the two families. It felt right. Fair. The journals were mine. I occasionally read them in an attempt to comprehend the man I had married. Most of the time they sat in a drawer. Evidence of a life built on secrets I was questioned about, whether I regretted spending 50 years with Gerald. I would have preferred not to marry him. It was a complex response. He had lied indeed. Indeed, he had betrayed me in the most basic manner. Yes, I had spent years creating a false reality, and he had stolen those years. Still, those years had passed. Holding David as a newborn brought me genuine joy. There was genuine laughter at the dinner tables. It felt real to have a hand held in the dark. Gerald's dishonesty only made those moments more difficult, not less memorable. I discovered that it's possible to love and hate someone at the same time. History is not negated by that betrayal. The emotions you felt while living in the lie are just as important as that truth. On what would have been our 56th anniversary, I visited Gerald's grave. Since the funeral, I hadn't been there. Patricia had already arrived. On either side of his headstone, we stood. It said, "Gerald Thomas Cunningham, beloved husband and father." "Which husband?" Patricia asked wryly. "Both," I replied. "That's the thing. He really was, to both of us." For a time we were silent. Patricia asked, "Do you forgive him?" After that I considered it, gave it careful thought. Finally I said, "I'm not sure if forgiveness is the right word. I understand him better now. I pity him. Even he was so afraid of loss, so terrified of being alone, that he created this impossible situation. He hurt everyone he loved because he couldn't bear to hurt anyone by leaving." "That's not an answer." "No," I concurred, "but it's the closest I can get." We each left a bouquet of flowers and made our way back to our cars. Pat said, "Same time next year?" "Same time next year." I reflected on the peculiar form of my life as I drove home through the rural areas of Ohio, about how everything can be destroyed by a single phone call, about the way lies can pass for love, about how you can be with someone for 50 years and never truly get to know them, but also about fortitude, about connecting in unexpected places, about how the most beautiful lie is inferior to the truth, no matter how painful it may be. I sat at my kitchen table at home and prepared dinner, just for myself this time. There was silence in the house, calm, mine. I considered calling David, but changed my mind. He was strengthening his bond with his sisters. In his own way, he was recovering. I took out Gerald's most recent journal entry, which I had discovered hidden in the back of his previous notebook, dated only 1 month prior to his passing. March 3, 2023. I'm getting old. My body is failing. Soon I'll be gone, and the secret will die with me. Or so I hope. I've tried to plan for every contingency, but I know secrets have a way of surfacing. If Rose and Patricia ever find out about each other, I hope they understand. I hope they know I love them both completely, impossibly, selfishly. I was a coward who couldn't choose, so I chose everything. I don't deserve forgiveness, but I hope they find peace. Calm. He wanted us to do that. I pondered the meaning, the price, and the possibility that I would ever find true peace. And I came to a realization. My age was 72. I had been married to Gerald for 55 years, and we had fallen in love 5 years prior. My life was entwined with his for more than 3/4. I wasn't Gerald's widow, though. Not at all. I was Rose. The person who existed before Gerald and would continue to exist after him was Rose Cunningham Rose, who had discovered strength she didn't know she had after surviving betrayal. The woman who had unknowingly shared her husband with Rose had become an unexpected friend. Rose was gradually coming to terms with the fact that she had failed to see the truth. For the first time since Patricia's phone call, I slept soundly that night. It wasn't that I had forgotten. I didn't forgive because of it. However, because I had agreed. The truth was painful, complex, and devastating. However, it was the reality. Furthermore, a beautiful lie is always inferior to the truth, no matter how difficult it may be. The following morning, sunlight was pouring in through the window of my bedroom, my sleeping quarters, not ours, mine. I brewed coffee, go through the newspaper, planted springtime tulip bulbs while working in the garden. I also survived. Not what I had intended to do, not what I had believed to be my life, but my life, sincere, truthful, and mine. And that was sufficient somehow.